Hey, this is Omar from the Phoenix Within, and you're watching Beyond the Static.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me here on Beyond the Static. We have Omar Feliciano of the Phoenix Within. Uh, Welcome. Thanks for joining me. So let's get started. I kind of just have conversations with people and see where they go. And it's been working for me so far. So let's see how it works this time.
Awesome. Let's do this.
All right, so let's start with some of the housekeeping questions. Why don't you tell me about the band, where you started, where you've been, and how we got to where we are now?
All right. So I started this band in 2012 uh, in the basement of uh, an, in a basement apartment in Hillside, Jamaica, Queens. At first, it was just a bunch of songs that I had, and then I reached out to some friends, and we ended up recording an album at in New Jersey. We were all scattered across like 4 different states. So after writing that full length album, we released it. It was self-titled, called The Phoenix Within. And then the band broke up. The lineup that I had fell apart. They were getting married. They were going off to college. So I kept the name. I kept the moniker, and I bounced around. I continued with that name, writing music, releasing music. I played like 15 different states. You guys are based out of Philly, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So I worked with an indie label out there in Philly. Two of them actually. The first one was called Crybaby Records, and then the second one was called No Hope Records. So
I'm
I
familiar
worked
with
with them
both of
for a
them.
while. Yeah. So I've worked with them, and then I kept releasing music, and then fast forward to now. Eventually in 2019, I met Nick Narlis, um, and then he has two other brothers, John Narlis and James Narlis. We combined together, and that's the new lineup that you see now. So I still continue to make music. I still continue to write music. Only now it's getting even better with
Uh,
new minds on a plateau.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was gonna ask about that. What's it what's it like working with brothers like that? Like I assumed that it was a family band and that like you had kind of joined, but it's the complete opposite way around. That's really cool.
That's so funny. I just saw a meme this week, and it was like, who was it? Was it Vin Diesel? I think it's Vin Diesel. And he's just like tearing up, and like in the back it says, "When your boy's family finally accepts you as one of their family members," and you just see
Uh
like that one tear. He's like, "You're not a friend. You're part of the family," and you see Vin Diesel just drop that one tear, and I was like, but no. So I started this whole band a long time ago, and like I said, it started with a bunch of songs that I had. I'd been in bands in and out, in and out, in and out. And unfortunately, it was like one of those things where you're in a band, you play some shows, you finally get to the studio, and then the band breaks up, and nothing happens after that. So I got a little fed up with that, and I said, "Here's a project where I'm going to be solely responsible for." I planned like it's kind of like that pessimist mentality when I was like, I'm going to start this project. This is the lineup I have now. If this lineup falls through, I'm keeping this moniker and I'm going to keep going. And I did just that. So fast forward, working with three brothers is not so bad. They do like fight amongst each other, but they don't call it fighting. They just call it talking. Like so if we're like in the middle of a practice session and one guy doesn't nail one part, that they do all the ganging up on each other, so I don't have to do anything. Like I just wait out the storm, and then we just keep at it. But
nice.
it does make it easier for practice reasons, and again, like getting on each other's cases, like they do it to themselves. So it just makes it so much easier.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. I actually kind of did the same thing. I've been through that whole process of bands breaking up and going in the studio, starting something and not finishing it. And I did the exact same thing. Like I finally, like, bass is my main instrument, learned how to play guitar, and I'm just like, yo, I'm picking this particular name and this thing, and if it doesn't work out, like, I'm just gonna continue on with it. But you know, got my fingers
It,
crossed though.
but honestly, dude, you can hold yourself accountable. You know what I mean? It's like, because it's your project, it's your songs, it's your material. It's up to you whether you want to keep going. Now you have no excuse to blame anybody else, any other reason. It's solely on you, And it also depends, every musician is different, right? There's so many calibers. I always like to say that. So it's really just the character of the person. It's up to you. Like, if it's really important to you to write music, if it's really important to get it out of you, out of your brain, out of your heart, and into paper and out into sound waves, you'll do it. You'll make it happen, and nothing will stand in your way. Whether you have a lineup or not, lineups will come. People will come. If the music is good, if they see that you're enjoying it, if they see that you're working towards something, they'll come.
That's good. That's really good advice for like younger musicians that are coming up and working on the scene. So why don't we talk a little bit about your current projects? You got a single that just dropped not too long ago. Let me see, why am I blanking on the name? There's Remake, which is awesome, and then there's Lacking. So why don't you tell me about the two singles?
Okay, so we released in 2021 we released 3 singles. So the first one was in January. It was a song called Pessimist. The song's like 5 minutes long, but it tracked at number 9 on the iTunes rock charts.
Nice.
So a few months later after that, we released Remake. Remake is a song about just being able to get past yourself sometimes, being able to see where you're failing or see where you're falling short, repairing that and doing it again. That's what Remake is essentially about. The song Lacking is a little more personal for me. Lacking is the story of the struggling artist, the things that we lack, financially, monetary wise, support wise, whether it's a label or touring agency or publicist, what things that we don't have, I feel like that song just hits me close to home. Like, for me, it's just something I had to get out, and it does sound a little, tough, but it does have to me, like a happy, it happily dissolves, in the sense that the chorus comes back and it hits you with the, I know what I'm going through. I know this is basically my little hell, but I'm gonna get through this because I know what's at the end. The goal is the end of that. So that song came out just on Friday, August 13. It's on Spotify. We popped a nice little music video for it, where we took the theme of dodgeball, since it's the underdog theme story. So we did put a lot of work into it, and we're proud of it.
I can't wait to see the video for that. That sounds pretty awesome. So let's explore the video shoot a little bit more. Like who came up with the idea, and like what was the whole process behind that, and tell me who you worked with and all the fun stuff. Like let's dive into that a little bit.
So we do switch around. So the first single that got released this year, Pessimist, that one, the video was 2 people helped us with it. The first one was Brendan McKnight. He's a local videographer, producer from here in Brooklyn, New York. And with him worked our friend Cody Doyle. And then I did some editing myself as well. Pessimist was it was like, COVID time, so it was like, we filmed the live performance here in Queens, New York, and then the storyline was done by Cody somewhere else in Ohio. And then we put it all together, mashed it up, and then we have this story, which is, I consider this one a little artsy, because it's just a person who's basically seeing this darkness in them evolve, and it's like they're just not able to see the good in things. I'm looking at the glass, it's half empty, It's just that whole pessimist mentality, and how one pessimist can kind of make another pessimist. It's that whole negative artsiness. The next video that came after that was Remake. That one was actually filmed by a really good friend of mine. His name is Danilo Cordova. His sister is actually a writer, Zoraida Cordova. If you ever get a chance, check out her books. So he's also in bands. I've known him for years and years. So he helped us film it, produce it, direct it. He did all that, and his girlfriend also helped with videography. And that we just took like kind of like that Black Swan idea, where the dancer is just constantly failing at something but doesn't give up, failing at it, falls down, gets hurt, gets up, does it again, over and over and over and over again until she nails it at the end. And that was kind of the that concept that we were going for, remaking yourself until you get the part right. So that was a fun one to make. We filmed that one in Elizabeth, New Jersey. And then this last one, Lacking, we filmed in also in New Jersey, a different part. I don't even remember off the top of my head. But so we filmed that one in Jersey, and that one was done by Michael Monto, who just likes to be called Monto, and his videography company is called Bushwick Studios. So that one, the whole underdog theme thing, I wrote the song, but I didn't, in hindsight, like thinking back, I don't really remember why I had written the song. And then as I was getting the artwork done for the single, I gave that workload to a friend of mine called Bianca Angelero, Anglero. And she did the artwork for it. And so she asked me for a copy of the lyrics. I give her the lyrics. I send her the song. And then she gets back to me. She's like, oh, it's an underdog song. And so she made this artwork, and the artwork is like she made it herself out of like aluminum or something. I don't even know. She's so artsy. And it's a trophy of a dog, like an underdog, like, taking the trophy, and I was just like, wow, I really like that. I didn't realize that was what I'd written about, And then, so when I sat down with Mike, with Monto, and he's like, so what do you think, the song's about? And I was like, it's an underdog story. Like, it was the only thing I was like, but I didn't come up with it, Angela did, And then, so we ran with that. And then, once we said it's the story of an underdog, Monto right away is like, yo, that's just like Dodgeball. Remember the movie Dodgeball? It's like the underdog tale. And I was like, sweet. So we ran with that. We went from there to having somebody custom make our uniforms in the likeness of the Dodgeball movie. So we got those yellow and red shirts, and we just had a blast filming that. We got a bunch of friends to come through. My friend Ezekiel from a band called All in Due Time. They're from out here in Queens, New York. They're a punk band. He came through, and just a bunch of friends gathered, and the outcome was just a lot of fun. A lot of drinking, a lot of eating, a lot of filming, a lot of sweating, a lot of balls. It was
good. I can't wait to see that. I'm so sad that I missed the release of that. It's so funny though how that's one of the great things about music and writing relatable music, is that you never know how someone else is going to interpret it, but as long as it's something that's helpful to them and that they see that like that they can get out of it to like improve their lives, that's all that really matters.
It's true. We can't just get stuck there. We can't get stuck. We have to see that light. Where's it go? Where's it taking you? What's the point?
How do you see how do I say it? How do you see and like feel that people relate to your music, and like what makes you connect to people, and what do people see in you that draws them to your work?
I really don't know, man. That's a hard question. I really just don't know until people tell me. I really don't know. Like it's one of those things where like I might release a song today. I released one on Friday, August the 13th, right? That song called Lacking. I might not hear from somebody till like a year, maybe 2 years later, and they'll tell me, hey, that song you released, Lacking? I really like that song. It's like, maybe I'm up to like album number 6. I don't even know. Like, and they're, for whatever reason, I guess there comes a point I think where like, I guess I'm not even looking for whether somebody had a connection to the song. If you did, I'm ecstatic for it. I'm happy. But at the end of the day, I write for me. it's a fucked up thing to say, but I do it for me. I don't really do it for anybody else. I might, you know, I might, we might all be in a situation where, it triggers me into writing, but at the end of the day, I'm doing it for me. I'm processing what I took in, and it's just what comes out. You know what I mean? Do I run promotional campaigns and everything for the song to go well and all that? Of course I fucking do. Because at the end of the day, music is a business. But do I get bent up and focus on the approval of something? No, I really don't. And I really just don't know. Because you have your analytics, right? You have your Spotify analytics, you have your YouTube analytics, your reports from Facebook and all that shit, and that'll tell you whether a song is doing good or not. But on a personal note, I really don't know until a person comes up to me and tells me, "Hey, man, maybe I played a live show," and then they're like, "You didn't play that fucking song I like." And I'm like, "What's the song you like?" And then they'll tell me, and I'll be like, "Oh, okay, I promise next time, I'll add into the set list. I didn't know. Like, if I knew you were coming, I would have played that song."
Dude, you know what? I've been that guy. I've been like, why didn't you play this song? Like, I actually said some friends of mine, I had the opportunity to hear their demos before they released their album. And I was listening to the album and I just called up my friend. I was like, yo, why did you leave your single, like your hit single, off of this album? Like, you left the best song off of the album. But like to them, it was like something, it was like it didn't mean the
Sometimes we don't
same.
think about it.
Yeah.
Like we don't, right? We don't know. Like it's different if people are giving me input. And that's why I kind of like to give input too, even if it's not asked for. I'll be like, dude, that song was dope. I really like this. I really like that. This song really connected with me. I make sure, at least for me, like that I tell the artist that, like whether it's at a show, maybe it's a band I never even met, I actually went to a show this Sunday, and it was like a surf rock thing, but the bassist in that band was a fucking beast, dude. Like, actually, I think he was from Philly, but he was a beast, dude. Like, every sound that came from that quadrant of the stage was just so big, After the show, I went up to the guy and I was like, dude, you were phenomenal. Everything that came out of it was great. I shook his hand and I had to give him his props, And the guy was like, I thought I sucked. Like, he thought he did awful. And I was like, dude, you were actually like one of the best performers I've seen in a while, and it was just so funny. But I think that's how artists are, right? Like we're in this little bubble sometimes, and
Right.
sometimes it takes people from the outside to tell you, hey, stop right there. That shit was dope. All right, goodbye. That little interaction is it's detrimental.
I don't know if you're familiar with the band Lydia, but when they first started like popping back into like the early 2000s, maybe like 2009, 2010, a little bit before that maybe, they had this song that has like one of the craziest bass lines, right? And I went up to their bass, I was like, dude, you're like the best bass player I've ever heard. Like, that bass line is just stupid. Just on that alone. And he was like, dude, I have you fooled. He was like, I have you fooled. I was like, well, but you know what? When he said that too, it also put this thing in my mind of like, yo, fake it till you make it. Like, I can play something that just sounds cool and have somebody thinking that I'm like, I know what the fuck I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I know it sounds cool, and that's all that matters. And like, once that switch flipped in my head, like, all bets were off when it came to like making music and making any kind of art. It's just like, I don't have to be, even this podcast, I don't have to be Joe Rogan to have good conversations. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's a very liberating frame of mind, I think.
Yeah, it's true. There's so many levels. And I think in the entertainment industry too, in the music industry, it's, a lot of it is hype. A lot of it is who you know. There's just so many factors. Like a performance could be anything. You can have guest performers, you can have lights and fog machine and dancers, and throw out money into the public, real money, none of that paper shit. You know,
Mm.
there's so many things, there's so many levels that just make a performer, or an entertainer an entertainer. Like there's so much.
Absolutely. Like I firmly believe that there's a difference between a musician and an instrumentalist, you know. Um, you know, one plays an instrument really well and one creates music. Like, one creates the things that connect to people. But that's just me, you know. Some people it's one and the
That's
same.
true. That's true. I know. I think I'm gonna have to agree with you, only because of my own personal experiences. When you meet musicians who know how to read music really well, um, who know how to learn, memorize, and then regurgitate what they read, but when you put them in a situation where they have to create their own musical elements, they're fucking out of their water. They're just flopping around like, what
Right.
the fuck is going on? Nothing is working,
Mhm.
And sometimes, like, in one sense, yes, they're amazing musicians, right? Like, you give them the music and it's done. It's a wrap. They can play it. They can do it. Uh, but for me, it's the other way around. Like, I guess it's like I've never really put emphasis or stock in learning other people's songs. Maybe in the beginning when I was learning how to play music, for sure, I was like, I want to learn the song. I want to know how they did this, how they did that. But then came a point where I was just like, I want to write my own music now. I want to, take everything that I've learned and then mix myself into the equation and then see what comes out. And I find that a lot of the professional musicians that I've worked with lack that. Like they can do, you can give them the music and they'll nail that, no problem. They're professionals. But when it comes time to create their own elements, they are just boring.
Right. Right. Yeah, man. But you need that. Like, you need the people who are technically inclined. You need the people who are
Hmm.
creatively inclined to work together to make something fantastic. You know?
New and sophisticated. That's what's gonna come
Yeah.
out. Yep.
Like, I wouldn't expect an architect to be able to like swing hammers, but I also wouldn't expect like a contractor to be able to, you know, draw up the exact draw up a plans for a
Schematic.
skyscraper. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, facts.
So,
Everybody's got their little role to play, in this giant machine.
absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so you mentioned COVID earlier. Obviously, that has been the uh the bane of everyone's existence for the past couple years. Um, how did that change how you go about creating, releasing, promoting your music? Like, how did that change your whole process of operating?
Well, as an indie band, for sure, it definitely had its effect in the how do we stay relevant when we're not playing shows kind of thing, right? It's like, um, did we make a lot of money from playing live shows? Absolutely fucking not. Like, so it's like, yeah, you took away that element, but I guess like my mind quickly just it tried to grapple with the idea of like, okay, how do I stay relevant now that that's gone? And then I had to weigh out like, well, what am I, in my case, we're a much smaller band, we're not losing a big source of income, I guess, so I had to look at it that way. I had to look, at what I'm losing, what I'm gaining, and whatnot. And then I just came to the conclusion. I'm like, all right, what can I do next? And I started seeing how the professional bands were doing their videos, their online streaming events and all that stuff. But there's a lot of roadblocks in that, right? Like the fact is that they're bigger, right? So they have more connections, a bigger budget, endorsement companies who are willing to take a piece of those expenses off their top so that they can come out making more money, as long as they promote the product and whatnot. So we didn't have any of that stuff.
Right.
um I did notice that a lot of, like, so my first was like, oh, we'll do live shows, but then I started seeing the local bands kind of try to emulate what was going on, and a lot of them just, to me, in my mind, just like doing a horrible job at it. And it's not their fault. Again, like, what were we up against? Like, you
Right.
had streaming issues, you had technology like that wasn't caught up with it, and also you had like no real like a following. So like even if you did host a successful thing and nobody's tuned in to watch it, what did you really gain from it? I don't know. Like, you know,
Right.
maybe after the fact you can promote that video. I'm not sure, but like I just found a big discrepancy and I was like, I think that's not the avenue for me. So we stepped back, went back to the drawing board, you know, and I was just like, you know what? I started reviewing and revisiting. At the time, the Phoenix Within has so far released 2 albums, 2 full-length albums. So the first one was a self-titled one that I told you about, and then the one that followed after that was an acoustic album that I released after, you know, being by myself. So I went back to that album, the original album, and between that time span, you know, I had dropped two. I had dropped another EP that was also full band called The Great Deception. So what I did was I took it off online. I took it down. I also took off the self-titled album. I had the whole thing remixed, remastered, and I re-released it as an album called Established. I did the same thing with the Whispers album. So the Whispers album, there was an EP that came before it called the Natalie Rose EP. It was acoustic songs as well. I dismantled that as well, and I mixed it with the Whispers album, and I remixed, remastered, and re-released. After doing that, I listened to all the songs again. I decided I was going to write a songbook for each of those albums. So I did that. So I went and I published my own book based on that album. So this is the Whispers
Oh,
Guitar
wow.
Chords Songbook. And then I published a second book for the full length album called Established. So that helped me a lot. And then after that, the new singles came back, you know. So like with the new lineup, we started writing all these songs and we had a flurry of new singles. And for each one, we also released music videos for and particular designs or t-shirts that match the single. So basically we moved our stuff to a more of a digital online marketing approach. And that did help us a lot more because what was coming out of that was sales and, you know, good conversion rates, and in exchange, it gave us money to go record more music. You know what I mean? So that's what we did during COVID. So during, you know, at the thick of it, we just kind of had to hit the drawing board, see what worked for us, what didn't work for us, what we done, but what we hadn't done. And what came out of that was, hey man, we have all this music. It's our music. It's original music. Why aren't we getting mechanical royalties off of this? You know, if we're losing the performance royalty, we can get a mechanical royalty now. So that helped a lot. You know, we added the book to the Amazon store, and it's also available at in our own website, which, you know, we can autograph it and sign it and make special dedications to people. So we just took it somewhere else, and that's what came out.
That's awesome, dude. Like that's so out of the box, and you've been hearing so many been hearing a few stories about that, and it's just like, wow, the ingenuity of especially someone on like the indie level that can just adjust and you know, ride the waves. Like it's so it's amazing.
It's like music is ever evolving, though. You know, it's just we just have to keep going. You know, like that we can't close ourselves off. We got to keep learning. Dude, I still take like fucking music lessons. You know, I have a degree in biology. I work in my field, but I still take lessons. Like there's so much to learn. There's so much to do. You know, and things are always changing slowly. You know, some things slowly, some things crazy fast. You know, like COVID hit and they just closed all the stages. It's like, what the fuck happens now? You know,
Right.
it
Right.
changed the game for a lot of people. You know, some people who, you know, if you had your own recording studio, you're all set. You know, like you can just mix that with some good cameras, and then you have what you need. You know, you have the pieces. But a lot of people had those things, but didn't have a band. You know, right? So it's like, ah, crap. Like, you know, I have a portion of it, but I don't have the rest of it. You know,
Right.
so it was very interesting. It was very interesting. You know, but I think it's one of those things again. Like it's like you know, we don't have control over everything. We just got to make do with what we have and to the best of our capability and abilities, and just keep moving.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes so much sense. Um, so I saw that you're influences are like a little bit all over the place. I mean, I know grow um some being in that New York scene, like there's so many like great bands in our genre. Like, does do you ever like get the feeling that like does it ever feel like there's any like pressure on you to like kind of like be a part of or like live up to like the how do I say it, the but like kind of like I don't want to say legend of New York, but like kind of that whole area, like the legacy of that area. We have like your Brand News and your Baysides and your your Taking Back Sundays, which I saw as one of your main influences. Like, you have all of that. Does it ever like how do you feel like you're fitting into that legacy, and does it dawn on you like from time to time? I don't know if that makes sense.
I totally. It's like when we'll like creep out of that shadow, I guess, in a way too. It's like you know, for example, these last three singles that we released, I'll have people who say, "Oh, I heard that song Pessimist, and it reminds me a lot of Coheed and Cambria," or then they hear the riff parts and they're like, "Oh, it reminds me of Tool," and then they hear another song, like a remake, and they'll be like, "Oh, it reminds me of this and it reminds me of that." And to me, it's like it's a little bit of an honor in a way, like that they're able to recognize so many different artists in what we're doing now, because I fucking love music. I listen to everything, dude. And I've been told I'm a very annoying person to drive with, because like when my thing will go from like a bachata mix, dude, to like Puerto Rican salsa, to Cuban jazz, to like to Chevelle, to Slipknot, to Mudvayne, Bayside, Taking Back Sunday, Jimmy Eat World, to Bollywood, to Korean music. If it sounds good, I want to listen to it. So it
Right.
only makes sense that all those eventually merge, and here I am. I think that all those bands that came in before me, they're greats. I do hold them to a certain bar, and in a lot of ways, I do measure, I guess that I guess I do measure the band's success at certain things to them. Like, I remember watching Bayside's first Warped Tour performance. I was there for that. Like, I remember Anthony Ranieri walking down, and I was just like, "Oh shit, that's the guy from Bayside," like, and then like a few years later, they just get bigger and bigger and bigger till they got to where they got. Coheed and Cambria, I remember when it cost like $8 to see them live with Thrice. Like, it's insane. Like, to think about those things. And the only thing I could do is we have a song called Copycat, and they kind of touch on that, where I'm just like, it's important that, yes, you have all these guys who you respect and you see, and you can take parts of them and make this new thing, but it's important not to be a copycat. You still have to be authentic. You still have to put in your own work to reach those levels. And when you reach those levels, you better thank those people, because you did it off of their shoulders. You only saw that far because you stood on somebody else's shoulders. That Isaac Newton approach, where you only saw that far because the greats, they cleared the path for you. They made that genre. They made that space, that niche, and you're just coming in to, fill it with a little more life, a little more vibe, So yeah, I hope that one day we are as big and as popular and as great as they are, and that we also have like a following one day like that, where people are like, "Hey, I grew up listening to the Phoenix Within,"
Right. So it looks like we're winding down on time a little bit. It's great having you on. Why don't you do all the things, plug where they can find you, the new song, all of that stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So the name of the band is the Phoenix Within. My name is Omar. You can find us anywhere. You can stream music anywhere. YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. Just type in the Phoenix Within. Please follow us. Please add us. Please message us. I'm always checking that thing. I'm always hoping somebody will talk to me. We will be having some performances coming up in the month of September. The first one is in New York City. It's a venue called Arlene's Grocery. Right now, it's at 75% of the tickets that have been sold. It's looking like and I'm hoping it'll be a sold out show. After that, we'll be playing the Blue Ridge Rock Festival in Danville, Virginia. And we will also be playing Incarceration Music Festival in Ohio. Again, we're the Phoenix Within. Please do check us out.
Nice.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for joining me here on Beyond the Static. Omar Feliciano of the Phoenix Within.